Well, rather than me giving some spoilers, I want to start with each of you to give a brief summary of your engagement with this topic in your own life. So how do you engage with gardening and nature in your life? So I'm going to start with you, Matt.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Matt, pronouns are he and him. And the way I engage with gardening/nature is through my work. I am a bush regenerator, which in a sense is I go out to natural reserves, I go out to sort of developing kind of land and basically getting rid of weeds and planting in native. So we're basically trying to revitalise the land. So that's how I engage with it.
Okay. Dave.
Hi, I'm David. I tolerate gardening. No, I love gardens. I love what you get to enjoy on the other side of gardening.
Yep.
And for myself personally, when it comes to self-care, just really make an effort to deeply immerse in nature, which looks like a lot of hiking, a lot of walking, sometimes just like staring at a tree for an hour. Or like some ants in a blade of grass. So sort of just that deep immersion into nature is probably, the big thing for me.
Great. And Rich.
So yes, Rich. Look, I have a bit of a balcony garden, so I moved about...
Okay, you say you have a bit of a balcony garden.
I do have a bit.
That is an understatement. Let's be honest here, okay?
Look, I had moved about 12 months ago. So previously I had a townhouse and a little courtyard. So it's like trying to recreate the courtyard in a balcony garden with much less space.
Roughly how many plants do we have?
It's 30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's an addiction, but it's a really healthy one. Yeah. Cool.
You can never have enough.
It's fine. It's a
You
safe
can.
place. Yeah.
Yes.
I think you can have enough. I think that's actually.
You can't. There's always room for one more.
Yeah. So Matt, your engagement with gardening is actually your livelihood. It's your full work. Does that change the way that you engage? Does it change your love of nature and gardening?
I'd say it improves.
Okay.
It definitely improves, and particularly the work that I do, because a lot of the focus that I had before my work was more of the fauna side, more animals. I didn't really have too much of a inclination for plants, and I did do a little bit of a stint of bush regen a fair few years ago pre-COVID, and it was. I didn't mind it too much at the time. It was nice sort of getting into it, but I've definitely got into it now in the last year or so, and it's really helped me get an appreciation for just plants and ecosystems and the little sort of micro communities you'll find within natural reserves, and it's given me a better appreciation for the actual flora side.
Okay. And Dave, I know that engagement in nature is a really big part of your life. Obviously, last year you had an incident where you were unable to engage in that because of your foot. Are you able to talk about what that did for you?
Yeah, so I was essentially bedridden for 6 months last year. And I find, for me, I think nature is it's like a perspective piece almost. And I have a pretty hyperactive, chaotic way of approaching most things in life, if you know me. But I find that deep immersion in nature really settles and calms and clarifies. And so not having that was a huge challenge. I got partway through the year and am proud to say that I am now a plant parent to a whole bunch of plants that live in my bedroom.
Okay.
Because I just needed that environment around me.
Did that help?
It did, for sure, yeah.
Okay.
It lifted the entire space and lifted my engagement with that space in a major way. But yeah, I was reflecting this week. I actually went for a walk on the anniversary of my accident and watched the sunset over the water at Walleye Creek. And yeah, it's just so grateful to be able to do that again.
I love that. Yeah. Is it a similar feeling for you having your plant zoo? I'm going to say zoo in your place. Is it about bringing nature into your home space? What is it? How did you come to be such a plant owner?
Look, I think I came at, I never thought I would be a gardener. That was something I thought, it was so far away from where I was at. And then probably about 7 years ago, there was a bit of a, we'd lost a family member. And out of that, there was a bit of a process of, grieving and shock and all that stuff. And I actually got into gardening, and I found that it became like a creative outlet as well. So, I think the idea that there was always room for something else. So you could find another plant, or you'd look at a space and think, what can I do here? So I think there was a lot of creation in the garden that I pulled together. But I think it's also sitting like on my couch and just looking out at the garden, and just, there's been moments where I've been working from home and taking a break and looking out at the garden and just actually feeling like recentered and actually really calm. So.
Could you say more, Rich, about how gardening or building that community of plants helped you in your grief?
Yeah, so it was a process of about 6. So it was my nephew, who was quite young at the time. And it was a process of probably about 6-8 months where I didn't feel like I was able to go out, and I'd go to work, and that was pretty much it. You just sort of take to yourself a bit and process. I think it sort of got me a chance to like really just recenter and focus on something else, and focus on sort of creation, and I think bringing life. So looking at like a plant at a nursery and going like, just having that sort of sense of, I know where I've got to stick that. Even without really knowing, you just know, I've got to put it in this space or that space. And seeing the plants grow and seeing them flower and things like that. So I think it's lovely to see that life.
The loveliness,
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, I think the first time you preached at Leichhardt, it was a creation-themed sermon. Is that right? From memory?
It's sort of a very sort of natural-based.
Yeah.
And I feel like I haven't done any sort of theology or like any kind of official like theology course, but I feel like the basis of my personal theology is based on sort of creation, and just the way that the sort of the design of our world isn't something that is it's not mathematically like possible, like to sort of figure out in your sort of own sense the sort of random events to occur for like our world to be created for certain designs of plants and animals to sort of just be created in a sense. It's this sort of this grandeur design that's sort of created by
Creator,
by a creator, and so it's using that kind of that kind of sort of idea and that sort of faith sort of allowed me to sort of really get an idea as to how to put that into a sermon, how to sort of link that into what I was reading, and just sort of and I still remember the analogy that I used, this sort of example that I used at the time, which is I'm quite surprised I still remember it, because I remember reading it when I was back in high school, just out of the blue. I don't know, just recalled it. It's something that I do try to take, try to use a lot in my faith.
It really informs your theology, but it's also, as I understand it, it's not just the cerebral knowledge of how amazing God's creation is. For you, there's a real impetus to engage in creation, right? Through not just through your work, but you seem to love to be at within creation and enjoying creation. Would that be fair?
Definitely, and it's going to places like the Blue Mountains. It's going to coastal sort of scenery. It's just sort of being a part of yourself, being a part in creation, sort of letting yourself, sort of having a look around and just sort of looking at just the different sort of aspects of creation, just in both like the sort of the bigger picture as well as the smaller picture. Like as David was sort of saying, just looking at a tree, looking at ants on a blade of grass. It's fascinating. It kind of just really sort of draws you in at sort of different parts of creation.
And birds are a thing for you as well, right?
Big time, yeah. So it's birds has been something that I've sort of associated with as a kid. I used to grow up with a bird feeder outside, and back down the south coast. We get a whole good variety of wild birds, lorikeets, king parrots, cockatoos, and it used to be just this real fascination of just like the interactions, the interaction between birds, as well as the beauty of their design, and it was something I'd sort of grown up with. It's something I pursued going into my studies. It kind of evolved in a way, like wanting to become like a veterinarian, and didn't really feel like it was the right path. And so I thought back. It's like, okay, what was the real reason that I wanted to sort of pursue this? And it was like, well, it was to study it was to look at animals and to sort of observe them, but outside rather than to
In a domesticated
in a
environment.
domesticated sort of. It was certainly a nice I guess path to sort of go towards, but it just wasn't what clicked with me.
Yeah.
And so drawing it back to like, okay, what was the thing that I really resonated with? And it was just being outdoors. It was seeing, our Australian, outback for the beauty that it is.
Thank you. Dave, how is it or why is it that being in nature or hiking or, staring does something so deep to your soul? What is it about engaging in nature?
I think some layers for sure. One is for myself personally, my sort of deep sense or experience of the presence of God has more often than not happened in natural environments. And part of that is, I think, being dragged out of yourself. Either being in awe of something so big and wonderful and, standing on a cliff top and staring across a mountain or on a headland looking at the waves rolling in and just feeling the cosmos shift around you. In that space, it kind of gets me out of my head enough that I can tune in more to maybe what God is doing or God is saying or that sense of presence of something larger than me and the divine. So that for sure is part of it. Another part of it, like the hiking piece for me, is I have tried meditating and a bunch of different things in so many different ways throughout my life. And the only thing that seems to work is if my body is moving so hard that my mind just stops.
Sure, yeah.
And so
Staying still, not so much.
Staying still, not really my thing.
Okay.
Something has to be moving, and if I'm still, my brain's probably racing. So I found that actually moving my body in that way, particularly in those environments, really stilled me on the inside. I think just pausing to reflect on scripture even in those spaces have been really deeply meaningful for me. So I went through a phase of kind of shredding my own faith and piecing some of it back together again. And there was about 6 months where I just walked. I was fortunate to be living near the beach at the time, so I walked up to a headland every couple of mornings and just watched the sunrise and had the verse from Lamentations, your mercies are new every morning, kind of as a little personal mantra. And it was just a reminder that God gives us new beginnings. And now I can't see a sunrise without reflecting on that piece of scripture and what that's meant in my life. And so, so there's a lot of layers to it, but in so many ways, being in nature and immersed in that way has been a huge part of, I think, how God and I communicate with each other.
Yeah, love that. Thank you. Rich, what do your care of your plants teach you about yourself, and what do they teach you about God?
I think I'm amazed at the species side of things and the diversity in plants. I know, I've had friends come over and sort of see the plants and on the balcony, and for them it's just a whole lot of green plants. They're they don't distinguish between the different things. But I think once I've been to a nursery and you sort of have Google there and you're Googling away and seeing what can I get and where do they fit in. I just think the whole idea of God's creationism really sort of, it blows me away. Just the different types of plants that you've got, or the different types of species you've got, and you don't even know about them until you read up on them and you go, oh, this one was lost to science for 70 years, and here I can have it in my backyard. Or this one's got 250 left in the wild, and here I've got 2 of them in on my balcony. So I think it's just that amazingness and how close you are to, I suppose, species which are close to extinction, or and I think it gives you a real tangibleness about it. Like God is diverse. He creates so much and so much diversity there, but also that idea of like, how close are we to losing some of these species?
Yeah.
So I think that's always something that impresses me about God. I think in terms of me, I think it's just a centering.
Centering.
Centering, and it's also creating.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
this idea of being creative
Yes.
as well.
And you're nourishing another
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would look at it and think, well, I've had that there for a while. How about I move this? How about I
Okay.
move that? And it works better.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. While I'm on you, Rich, words of wisdom for people who might be thinking about, bringing some greenery into their space,
Yes.
their little inner west shoeboxes, as many people live in.
Yes.
What would you say to people?
Look, you can never have too much. So
Hey. No.
there's always room for one more. I think just start. Like, I didn't think I was a gardening person when I first got into it. And then I felt like once I started, it made sense.
Okay.
So I think you just start with something. You go
Any suggestions of where to start?
look, I do pretty much natives. And, but I think it depends on the type of person you are. Like, what do you like? You look at something, what speaks to you, I think is probably the first thing. Like, it could be like indoor plants. It could be like African violets or something like that. I think just go walk around a nursery and have a look at what's available and what resonates with you. I think that's probably how I started.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
No, keep going.
Yeah, and I think there's always room. Just have a look at your space. There's always room to put pots. There's always room. You've got different choices
That you can make.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Dave, what about for people who may resonate with that sense of I can't sit still, it's just not going to work for me? What would you offer?
Practice awe. And so intentionally put yourself into spaces that inspire awe. And I guess how to do that, it's such a vague thing. Be curious. I think I've found when you start to notice the details of something, whether it is the tree or the sunrise or the rocks you're walking past, you really quickly discover how fast your knowledge ends and then how quickly awe can begin.
I love that, yeah.
And so really notice the detail and put yourself in environments where awe comes easy. And I think that it has a way of giving life perspective and dragging us out of ourselves.
Nice. And Matt, for those who I guess have not maybe thought about engaging in bush regeneration, bush work or heading into kind of national parks, because it's so vast. Any wisdom you'd want to give to Luck members?
I guess, definitely going along the lines of, bushwalking is certainly one way to engage. There's also, I know that there's a couple of people that in my work, they help with volunteer groups in terms of just working at Centennial Park and just sort of helping build up the natural sort of ecosystems within Centennial Park, and that's just on a weekend. You can just sort of go out there and just sort of be a part of just building up a nice little sort of natural ecosystem within the city. It's just sort of helping sort of not necessarily sort of I guess balance the sort of the urban side to the nice sort of natural side.
Untamed kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Nice. Please give it up for our team.